What if the problem isn't the world, but the way you're looking at it? Could it be that freedom is only a shift in perception rather than a change in circumstance? And perhaps you are never really trapped by what you see, but only by how you see it. Today we're contemplating lesson 33. There's another way of looking at the world. This lesson doesn't offer us a new belief system. It offers a pause, a crack in the certainty that our perception is fixed. It suggests essentially that suffering is not proof of reality, but proof that we are seeing from a single habitual angle that hurts. So the perceptual error that we're aiming to undo here is this. You believe your current perception is the only one you can have. But of course it isn't. Suffering depends on that exclusivity. Well, this is how it is. This is what it means. There is no alternative, right? But this lesson introduces a very simple miracle that it calls another way. Not a new world, not some grand change, but a new lens. That's why the practice alternates between inner and outer causality. And that's because essentially both are on the same screen. Thoughts and objects are not really separate realms. They are like two aspects of perception, two aspects of a single viewpoint. So detachment here is not coldness, it is a release of investment, a release of attachment. The ego continues to insist that perception is urgent and personal and even absolute. But this lesson teaches you to look more lightly at the world. And the application is quite immediate. For example, the instant a distress appears, you're invited to say, there's another way of looking at this. That invitation is the doorway. Not the doorway to analysis, but simply the doorway to willingness. It's even true that you don't need to find a new way yourself. You need only to stop insisting that the old way is final, and that gentle openness will be the entry point of true vision. So before we go deeper into our contemplation, let's take this moment here to simply pause, become aware lucidly and fully of here and now, just this instant. Notice what happens when you step out of the past and future. Perhaps your body releases its tension, its anticipation and bracing. Perhaps your breath deepens, your jaw relaxes, your eyes soften. And as you rest in presence, place the central idea in your mind. There is another way of looking at the world. And with your eyes open, see if you can come into contact with the possibility that this statement is wholly true, that there really is another way of looking at all that you see now. Take these next few moments to contemplate the possibility and see what emerges as you behold there is another way of looking at the world. And now, let's begin to unfold our contemplation into dialogue. And the very first question that I want to ask is this. The lesson doesn't say that you are wrong. It says that there's another way of looking. So what is that distinction? And why is it so important for the mind that's learned to defend its perceptions?
That's such a gentle and important question. There's a world of difference between saying someone is wrong versus simply recognizing there's another way, another possibility to meet what's here. Wrong feels so definitive, final. There's something about the human mind that clings to being right, doesn't there? It feels like safety, like solid ground. But if there's actually another way, well, that opens everything up. It introduces uncertainty, and the mind resists uncertainty like it's poison. It prefers to keep things fixed. The mind that's learned to defend, it needs something to defend against. So this lesson is almost suggesting that defense itself becomes the thing it needs to keep defending.
Wow, that's pretty profound. It's just like, it's momentum, isn't it? It's almost like there's just this momentum in the mental plane to keep going with this thing that has been keeping going for quite a while. And uncertainty seems like a threat, but in fact, isn't it the way out?
Exactly. It's like once something starts moving in a direction, it wants to keep moving in that direction, even if that direction isn't really serving you anymore. And there's this brilliant irony. The thing we're defending against is actually the thing that's keeping us stuck. Uncertainty feels like the threat, but it's really possibility. It's the crack in the wall where the light gets in. The mind is terrified of what might be if it actually stopped defending its perceptions because it's not sure what would remain. But what if what remains isn't emptiness, but simply presence?
Yeah. And I notice in this lesson, it emphasizes casualness and the lack of urgency in accessing this other way of looking at the world.
That's interesting. Like the lesson isn't urging a frantic change, like you have to immediately flip your world upside down. It feels more about a gentle invitation, really. A quiet, oh, there's another way. Maybe I'll just notice it. Almost as if the desperation to change or improve is exactly what's keeping you fixed in the first place. What do you make of that casual tone?
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's essentially the antidote, kind of similar to what we've been discussing throughout, more of a quality of noticing rather than that familiar ego sense of, I need to change it, I need to control it, I need to organize it and get it just right, right? So it's like, I guess the question is, what happens when we stop trying to reach and strive for this new perception and instead simply allow one?
It's like when you drop the effort, there's actually space to receive. The striving keeps everything tight and contracted, but when you just allow, things can actually shift without your forceful intervention. The irony is, we think we're being proactive by fixing and controlling, but we're actually reinforcing the pattern. The lesson seems to be saying the other way isn't something you achieve, it's something you discover. It reveals itself when you stop trying so hard to find it.
Well, how does this relate to distress, right? In the Course, it's pointing out that the moment of distress is an opportunity to apply this lesson. But why is that so important?
Because distress is the perfect opportunity to catch yourself in the act. When you're feeling good, it's easy to miss the patterns, right? But when you're in distress, there's this immediate contraction. And that's when you can actually see how you're making the world, how you're choosing to perceive. The Course is pointing out that distress isn't happening to you, it's happening because of how you're choosing to see. So instead of trying to fix the circumstance creating the distress, you can look at the lenses through which you're interpreting it. And that slight pause between reaction and distress becomes everything.
Yeah. So distress isn't the signal of failure. In fact, it could be the signal that that other way of looking at the world is actually very, very close, isn't it? Perhaps even more close than in our times of comfort.
Exactly. It's like distress is actually the mind knocking on its own door. It's the signal that something feels off because the normal way of perceiving isn't working. It's almost as if comfort can blind us. We don't question how we're seeing things when everything is going well. But in those moments of real discomfort, that's when the normal patterns start to crack and you see, well, something doesn't fit. And the lesson is saying that's the perfect opening for the other way.
But what about that resistance, right? Like, what part of the mind resists seeing differently? And what is it afraid of losing?
That's the core of it, isn't it? It's the ego, that part of the mind that needs to have an identity, a story, something to hold on to. Seeing differently threatens that identity. If everything could be seen in another way, then what is me? What is my story? The mind clings to control, to definition, because without those things, it feels like it would dissolve, like it would cease to exist. That's the real fear, not losing what you want in the world, but losing yourself. And the crazy thing is, that sense of self was never really solid to begin with anyway.
Yeah. So that's the fear at the core of everything here, isn't it? Like, that's why there's this clinging on to the meanings, to the patterns, defending them, defending ways of seeing and ways of thinking. It's all out of this fear of dissolution at the core of it, isn't it?
Exactly. It's that primal fear of not existing as a separate, defined self anymore. And it's so brilliantly deceptive because the whole thing is an illusion anyway. But the mind doesn't know that. It doesn't have the capacity to see that what it's defending isn't real. It's like it's guarding an empty room with everything it has. And we wonder why we're exhausted.
So, this defending, this pattern, this momentum, this is at the core then also of suffering, isn't it? And then we might even extend that and say, like, well, what role does the certainty play in maintaining suffering?
The certainty is really the fuel. When you're certain you're right, you're certain the other person is wrong, you're certain the world should be different, there's no space for anything else. Certainty makes suffering solid, fixed. Like when you know what happened and who's to blame. But the Course is saying that's not seeing reality, it's just a conviction. And suffering gets so much of its power from that belief that what happened truly happened the way we think it happened. And what happens when we let go of the certainty? Well, suffering can still be there, but it loses its hold. The story loses its power.
Yeah. It's so profound, really, to just consider that this thing that we so desperately seem to need and cling to and seek for, certainty, is the very thing that is actually magnetizing and magnifying our suffering.
Exactly. And it's so insidious because certainty feels good in the moment. It gives us a sense of control, of understanding. But that control is illusory. It's like building a fortress out of shadows, thinking it'll keep us safe from ghosts. The thing that we're defending against feels real, but the fortress itself is built on nothing.
Yeah. And so much effort goes to maintaining this fortress of nothing, right? But in this other way, effort isn't even really required, right? We're asked to essentially to trade in effort for willingness. And what does that actually mean here?
It's such a subtle shift, isn't it? Willingness isn't about trying harder to be spiritual or having more good intentions. It's more like getting out of the way. You're not trying to force yourself to see a different way. You're just open, willing to have your perspective shift without knowing where it might lead. It's like saying, okay, universe, I don't know what else there is, but I'm willing to see something different. I'm willing to consider I might be wrong. That's it. And there's so much freedom in that because you're not wrestling with yourself. You're simply available.
Yeah. So then what happens if I don't have to change the world? If I can just loosen my grip on how I see it, what becomes possible in this moment?
Everything becomes possible, truly. When you're not busy defending how you think things are, when you're not invested in preserving your story of what happened or what should happen, there's this spaciousness, this peace that just opens up. It's not a dramatic change, it's actually remarkably simple. You're not adding anything, you're removing your obstruction to what's already there. When you let go of the grip on how things should be, what's left is presence. And then from that presence, whatever happens just is. You don't need to fix it, change it, analyze it, protect yourself from it. And that is actual freedom.
I love that. Very, very beautifully put. So now, as we come to the close of this session, I want to ask you if you want to leave us with something that would help us to even more deeply embody this lesson, something that perhaps from our human perspective we could easily miss. What would that be?
So often we practice this when things feel relatively calm. And then in the moments we're truly struggling, we forget it. The practice isn't just for good days or for lessons. It's most urgent in the chaos. The temptation is always to rush to repair the moment, when in reality, this lesson is actually a reminder to pause, to just pause after judgment, after the thought that makes you angry, after the perceived injustice, after the story that triggers pain. Because that pause isn't about fixing, it's about interrupting the momentum before you've had a chance to fully make the world in your mind. That gap, that's not emptiness, that's God in disguise.
That's pretty amazing. So, as we come to the close of this session, if this lesson, this dialogue, this contemplation opened even a small pause in the way you normally see things, I'd love to hear what shifted for you. You don't need to explain it, but perhaps just name it down in the comments. And if you feel called, then share this with someone who might appreciate the reminder that perception isn't fixed. And here, once more, let us open to the holy instant, that pause, that gap, that which is already and always here. And now, let us go into the silence.